Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? It's Austin the Money here. Today, I want to talk how to leverage margin to your advantage and how to use margin without paying any interest. All right, that is what we're going to get into today. Stick around. Some really awesome tips if you do not already know this. But first, let's get into the portfolio real quick. We are up almost 2% on the day. 2% on the week almost, 10% on the month, 20% on the 3 months, and almost 7% year to date, almost up $2,400 this year already. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, positions. So I decided to sell out of a few companies that I was up in. SCHD, I was up like 1.5%, sold out of that. Broadcom, I was up either 11 or 12%, sold out of that. And Nvidia, I was up like 6%, sold out of that. I really wanted to double down on Google, right? Really wanted to double down on Google. I bought 100 shares this morning at 183.70 so I could start more covered calls. So by me doubling down in Google, I am 200 shares deep in Google right now. I think Google is undervalued. I mean, we're trading at a 22 PE ratio on a $2.2 trillion market cap. I mean, you compare that to, look at Apple. Apple's trading at a 37 times. You look at Microsoft, almost a 33 PE ratio. Amazon, I think you're looking at like 41 on Amazon. So really, even Meta, Meta is a great company, 30 PE ratio, but they do have a little bit more growth, so I'll give them that. I think Google's very undervalued right now. I currently have a price target on Google around 220. That's what I'm shooting for. So I'm selling covered calls, $10 out the money on Google, which is great. And SoFi, I have $16 covered calls, which are still about 80 cents out of the money. And I'm also selling a put in case I need to average down on some shares, if SoFi lets me. So now let's get into what the video is going to be about, right? It's going to be about margin. As you can see, I have the little high risk thing. It's not really high risk. If you can see, my portfolio balance is about $37,000. You look at my Google, we have about $37,000 of Google. So if you think about it, my whole portfolio is pretty much Google, and SoFi is almost all margin, okay? So I have all this money tied up right here in Google and margin and SoFi, and I'm still able to sell NVIDIA puts, all right? To sell a 120 NVIDIA put, you need $12,000. And I have sold two. That is $24,000, right? And that's not my money because my money's tied up at Google. This is margin's money, right? And the way to get around paying interest on margin is you can sell put options. If you sell a put, or if you do any options, if you do a credit spread or whatever, my favorite is selling put options. It's just very safe. I like it, especially on great companies. But I'm selling put options with margin, 242 average credit, so almost $500 in what? This is 18 days from the date sold to expiration date. I am making almost $500 off of margin, and I am not paying any interest at all. Zero interest. If you look at my margin, the only margin used is my $5,100, and that is from SoFi. That is my SoFi holdings pretty much. And maybe a little bit of Google. No, I think it's all SoFi holdings. And then if you look at, so let me explain this to you real quick, just in case you guys don't know. So I have $6,000 of SoFi, and my margin is only $5,100. It's because I have covered calls. This counts as technically a credit towards my margin. So that's another way. If you sell covered calls, it technically brings down your margin instantly, even though you haven't received all of the credit, like it hasn't expired worthless. You technically received that credit up front. So with with this and technically with these puts I got almost $500 for. So that's why my margin is $900 lower right now, is because of all the options I have. but it says high risk. If I wanted to get rid of that high risk, all I have to do is buy back this sold put. And if I really wanted to get into the good standings of margin, buy back these two. But I'm not currently worried about that. If I do end up having to buy 200 shares of NVIDIA and 100 shares of SoFi, it still will not even say this. It's only saying this because I'm selling options, so it thinks it's high risk. It's a lot to explain. It's kind of hard to explain, but if I do end up buying these, like let's just say NVIDIA drops below 120 and SoFi drops below 114, I will be good. My buying power will go up. I know that's weird. It's this whole thing with margin maintenance. If you really wanted to learn about it, when you're going to buy a stock, where's it at? Right here, margin requirements. So you have an initial requirement and you have margin maintenance. So like my buying power for NVIDIA is $4,000. I guess it's the same for NVIDIA. Whatever. Anyways, that's how you get around it. You sell put options. So right now I'm making $242 for 2 contracts. That's $484. And I'm selling a put option on SoFi, another $33. So that's over $500. Over $500 that I'm going to make this month off of margin. And I'm not even using my money. I'm using Robinhood's money to sell these options. And I'm very comfortable owning NVIDIA at 120, and I'm very comfortable at owning SoFi at 14. So worst case scenario, if I have to own this, I am comfortable with this, right? You do not want to do this strategy if you're not comfortable owning the stock, and if you are also not comfortable on going into margin. So let me go ahead and get that out there. I would not, definitely do not do this if you're not comfortable with margin. But if you know how margin works and you've been using margin before, this is a great, great, great trick to do to use margin interest free. And I will always do this. I love doing this. And, you know, even if I did have to buy these shares, I could just sell NVIDIA covered calls at 120, get rid of the shares, and then boom. I would just be collecting premium pretty much throughout all these trades I'm doing. It would just be straight premium. So that is the trick. Market's closing in about 2 minutes. So we will, I don't know who has earnings on Thursday, but it's pretty much, the week's pretty much over. We just have Friday left. Yeah, guys, I definitely would look into that. Google is straight ripping right now. I mean, wow. Into the close, just mooning. Still $9 out the money for my covered calls, so not too worried about that. And, dude, just check out this SoFi. If you guys are still watching, check out this SoFi. It went from 1522 all the way down to 1479 and almost right back to 1521. So insane V-shaped recovery on this. Freaking crazy. But all right, guys, market's closing in 1 minute. My video is closing in 1 second. Peace.